All right, let's dive right in. Today we are looking at a revolution that is completely shaking up education as we know it. We're talking about how these incredible immersive technologies, things like virtual reality, augmented reality, and AI, are coming together to create learning experiences that are more connected, way more intelligent, and, surprisingly, more human. So let's explore what this future actually looks like.
You know, for most of history, learning has been a pretty flat experience. I mean, think about it. The chalkboard, the textbook, even the computer screen. It's all a 2D, static world. But now, we're literally stepping into a new dimension, a universe of 3D, intelligent, spatial education. We're moving away from just passively watching to actually being active participants inside our own learning.
So to really get our heads around this huge shift, we're going to walk through 5 key areas. We'll start by looking at the new learning environment itself. Then we'll jump into its practical uses. After that, we'll see how AI is the secret sauce that makes it all smarter, how it helps us build human skills, and then finally, we'll get real about the challenges of making this all happen.
First up, education's next dimension. And this isn't just about fancy new gadgets. It's a total rethinking of what a classroom can even be, moving our learning off of flat screens and into these amazing, fully interactive spaces.
This quote right here really nails the core of the problem. For so long, we've been trying to cram these huge, three-dimensional ideas into a flat, two-dimensional box. I mean, imagine trying to understand the human body from a textbook drawing or complex architecture from a simple diagram. Immersive tech finally closes that gap between the subject and how we actually experience it.
So what do these new spaces actually look like? Well, educators are calling them liquid classrooms. Picture this. Rooms where all the chairs are on wheels, so you can totally reconfigure the space in seconds. There are hundreds of extended reality headsets available for everyone with super high-speed connections, so it all just works. The whole place is built for collaboration and exploration, and believe it or not, they're becoming so popular that universities are scrambling to build more of them.
Okay, so you've got these incredible new spaces. What can you actually do in them? That brings us to our second section, learning by virtual doing. This is where we see the true power of training for real-world situations, but, and this is key, without any of the real-world risk.
And this leads to a really critical question, right? Whether you're a surgeon, a soldier, or even just dealing with a tough customer, some situations are just so high stakes that you absolutely cannot afford to learn from your mistakes on the job. So, how do you prepare for that? Well, for surgeons, it means they can practice incredibly complex procedures inside these hyper-realistic simulations. In there, you can train, you can make a mistake, you can learn from it, and you can do it over and over and over again until the motions are just second nature, all without putting a single patient at risk.
For the military, it's about running through high-stress scenarios, like an active shooter situation. It builds that critical muscle memory and the split-second decision-making skills that you need when every single moment counts.
And hey, this isn't just for jobs where physical lives are on the line. In the corporate world, it's a game changer for mastering tricky interpersonal skills. Think about a new employee who have to de-escalate a really angry customer. This tech lets them practice that intense, stressful conversation in a safe, repeatable virtual space.
All right, this is where things get really interesting. Let's talk about the AI co-pilot. Because these immersive worlds aren't just pretty static environments. They're becoming intelligent, they're adaptive, and they're personalized, all thanks to the power of artificial intelligence.
So, a key idea we need to wrap our heads around is the digital twin. And you can think of it as way more than just a 3D model. It's a virtual copy that's constantly being updated with real-world data, which lets it actually predict future behavior. It's like a living, breathing simulation.
And when you combine that digital twin concept with AI, well, that's where the magic happens. In medicine, you could create an intelligent digital twin of a patient to see how a disease might progress, or even predict how they'll respond to a certain treatment. And for the person learning, the system can give personalized adaptive feedback based on exactly what they're doing in the simulation.
But it doesn't stop there. Generative AI can actually create custom characters and scenarios on the fly. One university built an AI-powered student so that future counselors could practice the conversation skills. The AI can react, respond, and challenge the trainee in real time. The professors who built it, they just called the experience mind-blowing.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about some amazing technical skills, right? But this technology isn't just about training better technicians. And that brings us to our fourth section,
creativity, and connection, where we get to see how it can help grow the very skills that make us human.
I love this quote from an industry expert because it just frames this shift so perfectly. We're stepping into a new renaissance, but this time, the tools aren't canvas and marble. They're code, data, and pure imagination. It's all about that fusion of human creativity and artificial intelligence.
This brings up that big question everyone's asking. Is AI here to replace us, to replace human creativity? Well, the answer from the experts is a resounding no. They don't see AI as a replacement. They see it as a co-pilot, a tool that enhances our own abilities, boosts our problem solving, and helps us break through creative limits we never thought possible.
And this incredible partnership between human and AI leads to a concept they're calling usable story living. What this means is that learners are no longer just passive consumers of content. They become co-creators. They can literally build new worlds, share their own content, and become an active part of the educational story itself.
Okay, so this all sounds amazing, right? But let's get real for a second with our final section, the path to adoption. Because as exciting as all of this is, there are some pretty significant real-world hurdles we've got to overcome before immersive learning can really go mainstream.
You know, you might think getting people to use new tech is all about how valuable and easy it is, but fascinating research from Georgia Tech shows there's another huge piece of the puzzle. As you can see, a major factor is managing the perceived risks. Things like the cost, sure, but also privacy concerns, and even just the social fear of, looking kind of dorky.
And here's a perfect example of a real-world practical challenge. Research from universities shows that the average optimal time for a VR session is about 45 minutes. Go much longer than that, and fatigue can start to set in and actually hurt the learning experience. But hold on, that 45 minutes isn't some magic number that applies to everyone. As this expert points out, the variance between people is huge. Some can go for much longer, others get tired faster. So what's the solution? Flexibility. You have to give people the option to easily switch back to a normal flat screen whenever they need to. That's a core part of making this tech accessible for everyone.
So, with all these challenges, how do you actually get a whole school or a whole company on board? Well, experts suggest a pretty simple three-step framework. First, you start with knowledge. Share the data, explain how the tech works, and just demystify it. Then you build the right attitude by creating genuine excitement and a sense of play. And finally, you guide behavior with small structured pilot programs and manageable bite-sized steps. And really, I think this all comes together in one final, brilliant idea from Dr. Bruce Walker at Georgia Tech. He says the future of learning needs a new mindset, one he calls enjoyneering. It's this perfect blend of enjoyment and engineering, a powerful reminder that as we build these incredibly complex technical systems, we can never, ever lose sight of the human experience. We have to make sure that the path to knowledge isn't just effective, but that it's also engaging, playful, and honestly, a lot of fun.